You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. Today will be something special. I love all my guests, all of them. Today, though, is going to be something completely different, and I simply cannot wait. Travel, especially air travel, today is a grind. Glamour is the last word you think of when you think air travel. What if I told you there was an era when glamour was exactly what people thought of when they thought of taking a flight? Luxury appointments, upscale attire, fine dining served seatside, pleasant attitudes from staff and passengers. Most of them. My first flight was in 1975, but I was way too young to remember it. My first flight memory is the simple excitement of seeing a movie screen on a DC-10 on a flight from DFW to LAX somewhere in the 80s. Sadly, the golden era of flying was before my time, which is why I am so excited to have today's CX Passport guests, Kathy Kompare and Stephanie Johnson, authors of True Tales of TWA Flight Attendants, Memoirs and Memories of the Golden Age of Flying. Released in October 2022, Kathy and Stephanie's book is a wild ride of you can't make this stuff up tales. When the names involved run from Marilyn Monroe to Meg Ryan, Ringo Starr to Van Halen, or Dandy Don Meredith to the Chicago Bulls, you know you're going to have stories that aren't told anywhere else. I'm just going to read a quote from the introduction. These are the true stories that will make you laugh out loud, and some will bring you to tears. Others you'll find yourself shaking your head in disbelief. From crazy layovers, sex on the plane, galley disasters, sexual harassment, death in flight, terrible crashes, and frightening evacuations, great passengers to, yes, the rude, the drunks, and the truly crazies. Folks, I can't even read some of the titles to the chapters without chuckling or blushing. Now, a little about our guests. From her first step onto the 747 taking her to Rome, Kathy Kompare knew she had made the right decision to join TWA. For 20 years of travel around the globe, learning customs, languages, the ins and outs of smooth travel, she relished her unusual career, taking full advantage of what each city or country could offer. Stephanie Johnson flew for TWA for 23 years during the aforementioned golden age of flying. She explored the world as a local, uncovering all the secrets of great shopping, wonderful places to dine, the sights to see in those fascinating little corners of the world. From London and Rome to Munich and Madrid and points east and west, she knew them better than the city she lived in. Listeners, I'm not kidding when I say that when I prepared for this episode, I truly struggled on where to start. And I kind of wonder if I ever am going to want this to end. So let's just get started. Kathy and Stephanie, welcome to CX Passport.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
This is going to be a wild ride. I'm kind of jittery just getting excited about it. Let's start right at the beginning. We hear so much about that golden era of flying, that golden age. Was it really that glamorous? Or have we mythologized that era of travel? Oh, you got me. Yeah. So yes, it was that glamorous. Tell me.
Yes. If you like limousines and five-star hotels.
Yes.
Beautiful pools. Being picked up under the airplane. We never had to walk through an international airport. It was fabulous.
Yeah, I'm in total 100% agreement. It was the day and age. And Kathy and I, we've talked about this before. When you walk through the terminal in your uniform as a crew, people would actually watch you. And today in an airport, a crew goes by, you could care less. And it was just a totally different day and age. From the seats, big seats to sit in, leg room. We had convection ovens on TWA. I can't begin to tell you, it's thousands of steaks that I cooked to order. Yes, you ordered them medium rare, medium well done. I was, my husband laughs today because I was like a chef in a kitchen. I can still touch a steak with my finger and tell you if it's medium well or if it's medium rare.
My gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And rack of lamb. I know we cooked all this food in first class. It was unbelievable. And the passengers, they loved it and they were most appreciative, but at the same time, they were so used to it that I can say they were almost blasé about the experience too, because it would seem normal. Today, this would be what we call totally abnormal.
Oh, I'm sitting here shocked. I mean, first of all, you had me shocked with the word legroom. Like, I don't understand what that word even means anymore, right? So legroom
Yeah.
alone, but then cooked to order steaks. I almost would want to have fun with a flight attendant, but I know that I just couldn't possibly do that. But next time that I'm happen to be up in the first class cabin, I'm being asked about what I want to choose. I'd like my steak medium rare, please, and see what the reaction would be. I can't even imagine what that would be like. So that glamour, there must have been just a bevy of stories with that, people watching you walk through the airports, and I can visualize that the fashion design of the uniforms themselves, the just the aura of the flight attendant there is. And when I started reading through the book, the very first story caught my eye, and it's the cigar story. And there is no way this story happens today, so it's sort of the anti-glamour. But I'm curious, will you share that cigar story with the listeners?
Yes, I'd be happy to, because that is my story.
I love it.
Every word of it is totally true. I was working first class, and it was the procedure that when you were on the ground before the passengers would get on, you go up to the cockpit, introduce yourself to the captain, and tell him what position you were working. So this was one of our very senior captains. And he said, Stephanie, if you have any problems with commissary, you need anything, or any problems with passengers, I'm here. I will back you up. I said, oh, great.
Right.
Thank you. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So we get up in the air. We put on a fabulous show for the passengers, great food, the whole 9 yards, no problems. We pull down the movie screen, like you were talking about, movie screens on airplanes, and the people now are going to watch their movie. My flight partner and I were sitting on our jump seat, finally taking a break, when a call bell goes off. And I got up to go answer it. And the first class was full. And there was a woman in the window seat. And she said, someone's smoking a cigar. Can you ask them to put it out? And I said, certainly. Now, I know most people are going, a cigar on an airplane?
Your story could stop right here and we'd all be shocked. Wait, what's this about a cigar? But still,
a cigar.
Yes.
Yes. At that day and age, people were not only allowed to smoke a cigarette, but they could smoke a pipe or a cigar on the plane too. Well, I'm not a lover of cigars, I'll be honest. And when she asked me to ask the person to put it out, I was like, yeah, okay, good.
Of course.
So I went back to the gentleman and I said, sir, I said, I'm terribly sorry. I said, but someone has complained about the odor of the cigar. I'm going to have to ask you to put it out. And I smiled and said, thank you. And I turned around and left. 5 minutes later, I still see the cigar smoke wafting up in the air. I went, oh, good grief. So I went back and I said, sir, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I know you're enjoying your cigar, but I'm going to have to ask you to put it out now. Thank you. And again, I leave. All right. 5 minutes later, still cigar smoke. Oh, dear. I know. So I went back the third time. At this point, the airline magazine, which was called TWA Ambassador magazine, in the seat pocket in front of everyone, I pulled it out. So I opened the magazine up, immediately put it under this passenger's nose and run my finger through the line where it says, if someone complains, you have to put it out. I said, sir, I said, I'm sorry, you have to put it out now. And he just sits there and stares at me. And then he says, no. Oh. I said, okay. I said, so I've asked you 3 times nicely, and I pointed this out to you, what the rules are. And I understand you correctly that you're saying, no, you will not put it out. He said, I'm not putting it out. I said, fine, thank you. I turned around. I thought, okay, Captain, let's see, kiddo, are you going to stand up? So I went in the cockpit, told him what I just told you. He says, no problem, Steph, I'll be out in a few minutes. Thank you. So he comes out of the cockpit, and when a captain had on his hat and his jacket, you knew they were not coming out for a cup of coffee. This was business. Nice. So he walks back to this passenger and says, hello, my name's Captain so-and-so. He said, my lead flight attendant told me that she's asked you 3 times to put out your cigar and also showed you in the TWA Ambassador magazine what the rules are. He stares at this guy and says, I'm the captain. I'm only going to ask you once. And the guy looks at him and says, I'm not putting it out. He says, okay. All right. He says, and he turns around, goes back into the cockpit. There was always a CO2 fire extinguisher up there for electrical fires. And he comes out with the fire extinguisher in hand, goes back to the sky, breaks the seal on it, pulls up the nozzle, blasts off a stream of CO2 at the cigar. The cigar is out. It's covered in white, stuff that's not going to burn you or hurt your clothes or anything. And he takes the cigar out of the guy's finger and said, we will have no more cigar smoking on this flight, will we? And turns around and walks off. And as he goes past the galley, I'm in the galley, literally holding my arms around my rib cage, trying not to laugh out loud.
Right.
And he hands me the cigar and says, Steph, would you please throw this away? And he said, and I'd like to know if you have any further issues. I said, certainly. So trust me, I didn't go out in that cabin for about 10 minutes. I thought, no, I can't walk out there. And when the unbelievable thing to me at the end of this was that man never said one word to me. The passengers, we had a full load. That nobody around ever said one word to me about this. It was like it was totally normal.
Wait, I didn't catch that part in the story when I read it. I'm sitting here chuckling as you're telling the story, even though I read it, but I didn't catch that. People just all right, smoke, fire extinguisher on the plane, no big deal.
No, the passenger
awesome.
never said one word to me. The passenger sitting next, people get up, they go to the lab, they say things. Not one person ever said anything. It was like, oh, that's totally normal.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Oh my gosh. Now just try to envision what that might look like in today's world. Like there's no way that and let's be honest, amongst the 3 of us right now and all the listeners, we're probably going, man, that was the right thing for the captain to do. If only they could do that again in the future, right? Let's take care of this annoying passenger who won't follow the rules. I love it. And that's the kind of stories that just ooze through this. They're not always fire extinguisher on guest ones. There's actually a few cheeky ones that actually quite a few cheeky ones in there. And they really do crack me up. It's amazing how travel was quite different back then and how much canoodling, let's say, was going on in the air. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorite, and let's keep it PG-13, but what are some of your favorite cheeky stories from the air?
Kathy and I, we were talking yesterday and she said, you have to tell your story. And so it's my story again. The passengers, it was kind of funny when people got on, we're standing out in the cabin, saying, oh, you put your luggage here, yada, yada, saying hello, being pleasant. And you would immediately pick up on where everybody was seated, and who got on with whom. So this fella sits down in an aisle seat. And a little while later, a few minutes later, a woman gets on. She sits in the window seat. And it's obvious they're not traveling together. So everything's fine. It's a night flight,
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yes. Uh-oh.
I think I know where this story's going.
Yeah, right. This is in the day and age when we had pillows and blankets for people. Something.
Oh my.
Oh yeah, something they don't have today. And lots of pillows and blankets. So my flying partner, every 20 minutes after the service was done, the company wanted us to walk through the cabin, check, make sure nobody needed anything, and basically that they weren't burning the place down with the proverbial cigarette. So she's doing the cabin check, and she's gone for quite a while, and I didn't think too much at all about it. And then she comes back and she says, you're not going to believe this. And I'm going, what? And she said, that guy out there, that woman, she said, they're all rolled up in a blanket together, sprawled across the seat. And she said, I'm walking down the aisle slowly, and all of a sudden I feel myself trip on something. I thought, oh, it's a blanket. And I leaned down and I start to pull on it. And she said, it's a pair of men's trousers.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
Oh.
And that's when she looks over and she sees the two of them canoodling, as you would say, in the seat. And she thought, oh my Lord, I don't believe this. So she takes the pants and rolls them up.
Okay.
And takes them up to first class, and first class wasn't full, opens up one of the bins, moves some pillows and blankets, puts the pants in there, puts the pillows and blankets in front of the pants.
Oh, no way.
Yes, closes and closes the bin. She tells the two flight attendants in first class what she's just done, and they're laughing. So she comes back and tells me exactly what I'm telling you now. And I'm going, oh my God in heaven. She said, don't worry. She said, I will take care of it when he rings the call button. And I said, good. So needless to say, the morning light's starting to come up. Ding, ding. She says, uh-huh. So she goes out there and she says, yes, sir, do you need something? And he says, well, yes. He said, I decided that I was going to take my trousers off so I wouldn't get them wrinkled while I was sleeping. Yeah. And he said, I can't find them now. She said, you can't find them? Oh, no. She said, let me help you look. So now she's down on her hands and knees in the aisle. She pops up in the row in front of him and says to these people, excuse me, did you happen to see a pair of men's slacks? They're going, no. She goes over to the pops up at the other side. Did you see? No. And behind, no. She goes, sir, I have no idea. Nobody seems to know what's happened to the slacks. And then she said, would you like me to write up a flight report to the company so that if they find your slacks, they can return them? And he's going, no, that won't be necessary. So the guy got off the airplane wrapped up in a TWA blanket.
Oh, man.
And we all were cracking up and we said, oh, wouldn't it be sweet if his wife was there to pick him up?
That's right. She did the romantic gate pickup and here he comes out walking out with a TWA blanket. Oh, I'd love to hear the explanation he came up with. Holy cow.
Oh, I know. And so, like we said, you can't make this stuff up.
No, and this is our PG-13 story. I can't even imagine what some of the stories that we're not going to put on this podcast today. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Kathy, any stories that in the cheeky realm for you as well?
I did not have any loss of men's slacks.
Well, that's good.
That was good. I did have Sean Connery on a flight.
Okay.
And that was like pure pleasure.
Yes.
I mean, for me.
Are there stories there, or are these stories sealed, sir?
No, the stories are sealed, but he was a perfect gentleman. 007, the epitome of everything.
Little steaminess on the flight just with the passengers being there. So, know, 007, part of the 007 magic, right, is the glamour of the travel that James Bond, the character, does all over the place. But you as flight attendants got to have some of these same fantastic travel opportunities as well. And in the book, I read these tales of these fine dinners. I've read of entertaining companions that were discovered from the flight, and even swimming in the Seine, which I don't think anybody wants to do that today, but just the thought of, let's go swim in the river that flows through the middle of Paris. So I'd love to hear, let's start with you, Kathy. I'd love to hear some of your best memories from some of your overnights in these destinations.
London was one of my favorites. I mean, there were wonderful restaurants. I remember hearing, British food, not so good. Well, we found wonderful restaurants. And very often you were with the crew. I once had a lovely dinner with my husband who came along on a 5-day trip.
Oh, nice.
And we sat down in a lovely restaurant, and here comes our captain.
Oh, all right.
With a strange woman.
Oh, we're back to the cheeky. Okay.
A British woman.
Yeah.
This isn't in the book. But she was instructing him on how to eat asparagus the British way with your fingers. And we laughed and laughed at this guy. And then, and of course, 2 days later, I'm upstairs working to take care of the cockpit. And he looks at me and he goes, were you? No. He didn't go any further, but he knew I had seen him.
There's probably, I would imagine, some sort of a code of whatever happens on an overnight stays on an overnight, and some of those stories don't get shared back.
Right.
Something in your story there, it's not the London part of it, but I love the fact that you said upstairs, and just the fact of being able to go upstairs in a plane. And I did have some 747 memories doing that as a special thing. Stephanie, what about you? When it comes to overnights, any best memories from some of those exciting destinations?
Oh, wow. I just remember Paris. Wonderful meals in Paris. The French, you just can't beat them for cooking. And, I was 21 years old and here I am in Paris for the first time and we're having lunch. And I had never had salad niçoise. I thought I died and gone to heaven. Chunks of tuna and tomato and olives and this wonderful vinaigrette dressing. And it sounds so mundane right now, but not in Paris. It wasn't. There's so many places that we go. And what was really nice was we had obviously more senior people that say, oh, we've got to go here. You've got to try this, yada, yada, yada. So as a newbie, you were always being, shall we say, escorted, taken care of, and helped with the senior crews. We were entertaining. We had taken a group to London. It was strictly business for him. And I don't know what all we have been doing, but somebody said, well, where are we going to go for dinner? And I said, well, there's a great little Italian restaurant close to Harrods. Why don't we all get in a cab and go over there? So we do. And we're having dinner and everybody is going, oh, this is so wonderful. How did you know about this place? And I said, it's a flight attendant. What can I say? We always find the best places.
Let's do a little change of pace here. Now, you're talking about the era of glamour. And when I'm talking to guests on CX Passport, a lot of times I'm talking present tense. And present tense is travel is a beating. And so it can be nice to take a break, to go into that first class lounge, which you're describing as a first class lounge in the sky. But let's pretend that you're worn out from the travel. Let's take a little break here and join me in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly and hopefully have a little bit of fun here. Let's start with you, Stephanie. Let's go back to you. Dream travel location from your past.
Oh, that was simple. I went on a picture-taking safari to Kenya and Tanzania.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it was fabulous. It really was truly the best trip of my life. And my husband, to this day, says the same thing, and he can remember every minutia detail. It was wonderful. I tell everybody, go on a picture-taking safari.
Ooh, that sounds really nice. Ooh, I like that. Kathy, what about you? What's a dream travel location from your past?
I would say Athens and the Greek islands.
Oh, yeah.
Just going from one to the next, they get better and better. Again, the food's perfect. They always have wine, fresh fish, and then they start dancing. So there's entertainment.
I love it. I love it. My wife and I are hoping to take a trip to Greece a year from now. And so that idea of the islands and the food and the wine and all of that's helping inspire us to get on that ticket site and let's get something booked. What about, let's stay with you, Kathy. We'll go to you. What is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about New Zealand?
Well, I've seen a lot of it on television, and it just looks wonderful. The people look wonderful. It's a little more British than Australia, and it has none of the poisonous bugs and snakes.
Oh, that's right. I've heard that factoid, right?
So,
that there's none of that there.
That's kind of a big deal for me. So
I can see why. Yes, that would be fun to avoid that. A good reason to have that as a dream travel location that you've not been to. What about you, Stephanie?
Well, this is going to sound redundant, but I would love to go to South Africa, and not necessarily for a picture-taking safari, but I'd love to see the Cape. I would love to go out to wine country. Yeah. They have, their wine is just superb, and the scenery and everything else. I don't know why, but at this stage of life, I think it might not happen because that's a long flight. Long flight.
And it's not quite as nice as flying was once long ago. Although I will say, one time I did have the opportunity to fly first class, actually in a 3-cabin plane from Japan, Narita to DFW. And they had a pinotage, a South African pinotage on there. It was the first time I'd ever had that. And so, yes, the South African wines are spectacular. And it was on a flight that I got exposed to it. So perhaps there's just a little hint of glamour still left in flying today. I'm going to open this up to whoever goes first. What is a favorite thing to eat?
Indian food.
Indian food for Kathy. All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Stephanie?
Good. And I mean, really good. Caviar.
Okay.
Oh,
Coming
yeah.
out strong. You may.
Well, the thing about I got spoiled again.
Yeah.
TWA Beluga caviar from Iran. That's what we served in first class on international on our appetizer cart, no less.
Oh my gosh. Well, you may win the entire suite of CX Passport favorite thing to eat. I have not had anything, I think, that I'm over a little over 100 episodes, so it's hard to remember them all, but I don't think anything's trumped Beluga caviar. Well done. Now, on the other side, what's a thing your parents forced you to eat, but you hated as a kid?
Nothing.
Really? Kathy, nothing. You just loved everything.
My dad was a pediatrician. No,
Okay.
if we hated it, we didn't have to eat it.
Wow. Okay. All right. There are kids around. I don't have a lot of kid listeners, right? But I would imagine that if I did, they'd be saying, well, that's not fair. I got forced to eat something last night. But good for you, Kathy. What about you, Stephanie?
No, my mother and father never made me eat anything that I said I didn't like. My mother occasionally, she'd say, now I know you don't like this, but just taste a little bite because down the road you might change your mind. But no, I was pretty eclectic. I even ate liver and onions.
Oh gosh. And that's liver and onions has actually shown up as an answer to this question. So for you to eat that,
I was eating it.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. All right.
It was a prelude to Beluga caviar.
Parents, if you want your kids to have exotic travel and openness to the world, don't force them to eat things. I guess maybe the story that we're telling here. All right, let's close out the lounge. Kathy, I'm going to start with you and then close out with you, Stephanie. What is one travel item, not including your phone, you will not leave home without?
Makeup.
I like it. Stephanie.
Makeup.
Let's actually go back to talking about the flight attendant, the experience of being a flight attendant during that area. In my world of customer experience, we talk a lot about employee experience. Now, when I read some of the stories in your book, it just highlighted how different things are today as compared to back then. I was even shocked, and I reading it, and I gasped out loud when I read some of the questions on just the application for the job. So I'm curious. Tell me both sides of it. What were some of the things that you think were really special about being TWA flight attendants back then? And what are some of the things that you're glad that have disappeared?
I think they expected us to have more education, language fluencies.
Okay.
I met lots of foreign nationals who, they could speak 5 languages. I mean, that's impressive.
That is interesting. So language was a requirement back then? Was that a true expectation?
Yes, for international flying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd imagine that's something that that thought was really special about that. Stephanie, what from you, like from that era, what was really special, or what's something that you're glad has disappeared?
Well, I agree with Kathy. What was very special were the people that we worked with, the other crew members.
Yeah.
Just the most eclectic group and well-read, well-spoken, and obviously well-traveled. And I think all of that goes back to our job.
Mm-hmm.
But things that I would change would have been the fact that they were so strict with us about the way we looked, how much we weighed. Believe it or not, I had to sign a piece of paper in 1968 when I came with the company that I would quit at 32.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah. It had 32, you're out of here, princess. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
I was already kind of shocked on the weigh-ins and some of the stuff you described about appearance, but I didn't know about that part that get out of here.
yeah, you're over the hill, princess. So you're 32, but they changed that. This is really interesting. There's we came across, and it's in the book. It's a copy of a letter that was sent out by TWA management to the flight attendants in the 1940s. And believe it or not, they were allowed to be married then, which, you know, things changed where you couldn't be married, and then you could be married, but you were still 32, you're out of here.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
things changed.
You hit me with so many things there. My brain just exploded. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know that you couldn't be married. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you couldn't be married. But what was interesting in this letter from the company to the hostesses, then they were hostesses, not flight attendants, was that they had seen too much of an air of independence. And this is coming from the married flight attendants. So if it became important that the company had to furlough flight attendants, they would furlough the married flight attendants before the single flight attendants, even though the married flight attendant might have more seniority.
Oh my gosh. I know it's an audio
Yeah.
podcast. People can't see that my jaw is on the floor when you're telling me this. Are you serious?
Yeah. No, it's in writing. It's right in the book.
Oh my gosh. And that's another, I mean, I'm not here to promote the book. I'm just here to tell great stories and hear about it. But oh my gosh, yes, go read these stories. Y'all had me shocked when you were talking about some of the girdle checks and some of the things that were going on before you were allowed to get on a flight.
Yeah. Stephanie went through that. They had relaxed when I started.
Stephanie.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What's the story there?
Well, fortunately, I was skinny, rail skinny. There wasn't anything on me that was shaking. Let's put it that way.
I can assure you that's never been uttered on a CX Passport podcast before.
But the bottom line is they required us to wear a girdle. They would have supervisors that would come up and flick some of the flight attendants on their derrieres to make sure that they had the girdle on.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And of course, and then there was bra check, because remember in the 70s?
Oh, right.
Oh, they take their finger and they'd run it up and down your back.
This, I mean, as someone who is, I'm old enough to have kind of heard some of the stories, but I'm not in detail. But imagine someone, you know, younger than me, 20s, teens, 30, this has to just be shocking someone to think about, wait, this really took place in a workplace. And that is some of the things that I'm sure you're glad have disappeared. And it sounds like there's so much that was special about the relationships, some of the education requirements, the expectations, but then some of the physical aspects of it. And then, my gosh, some of the shocking social element of if you're married, you're going to get furloughed first. It just shocks me.
We were really some of the first feminists in fighting a lot of these rules with our unions. And there's a book out now, The Stewardess Rebellion, and it goes through all the stewardesses from various airlines who formed unions, got rid of weight check, got rid of girdles, got rid of marriage, you're out, 32, you're out. They really worked hard.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll get that into the show notes. I didn't know about that book. I'm gonna have to take a look at it. I don't think folks would look at that era and immediately associate flight attendant with advancing the feminist movement. But I get what you're saying there, that group was a part of helping advance and make some of the changes, not just in the airline, but changes as a part of a wider society change as well. Let's go away from some of the things that needed to change. Let's talk about some of the celebrity culture, because those elements inside of the book certainly fascinated me. You know, on one hand, you talked about how people would get nonchalant about a medium rare steak or whatever. And I imagine that was something that happened to you as flight attendants as well, that had to kind of be blasé, sort of nonchalant about some of the wealthier and more famous passengers. But I got to imagine there's some good stories as well. Tell me about some of those great stories of those celebrity culture passengers. What tales come top of mind to you?
I somehow could manifest any celebrity I wanted to meet. They would show up. Okay. I don't know how, and but it happened. But one of my favorite celebrities was a very famous actress, Rosalind Russell, who played Auntie Mame on Broadway and in the movie Auntie Mame. I just adored her. She was a 1930s, 40s comedian, and I really wanted to meet her. I knew what her married name was. I knew she lived in Beverly Hills. And I was out in Los Angeles and on a layover, and I got a phone call at 7 a.m. And they said, how fast can you get to the airport? I was the most junior person on a 747. And I said, an hour. And they said, no, you've got 30 minutes. So I flew out there, walked on the 747. They shut the door. And the flight service manager said, you're working first class and Rosalind Russell is in 1A.
All right.
And I just dropped my luggage and went, thank you, God. And we had the most wonderful talks during that flight and found out she and I had the same birthday. And it was a sad flight because she was going to Sloan Kettering in New York for treatment for breast cancer. But she was amazing. And I just thought, I am the luckiest person alive to be able to, have this thought.
Just be able to manifest it. How wonderful. What a great opportunity to be able to, as she's traveling to go do something that's particularly challenging.
Yeah.
You were able to provide a moment of comfort and glamour. Let's go back to that for a little bit. Stephanie, what about you? Any in the celebrity culture stories for you?
Well, I've got a lot, but one comes to my mind. Do you remember Dandy Don Meredith?
Well, I mentioned him in the intro. He was before my time, but as a resident of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, yes, I am quite familiar with the stories.
Dandy Don. Well, this particular flight, they were not boarding through the first class door. It was lucky 1011. They were boarding through the second door, all the passengers. So that meant that anyone in first class had to walk through business and then come into first. Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, they had just started boarding. I'm standing up in the front of the airplane talking with my flying partner when who walks through into first class but Dandy Don Meredith.
Ooh.
And I'm like, ah. And I looked at my flying partner. I said, I think we've got Dandy Don on today. And she looks at me like, what? And I thought, oh, you twit. What am I dealing with? Everybody knows who Dandy Don is. He had on jeans, cowboy boots. He had on a leather belt with a big fancy belt buckle. Of course, yeah. He had on some, regular cotton shirt with a collar, but he had on this beautiful suede leather jacket with fringe on it. And just a touch of glamour, the most beautiful blue Porsche sunglasses. And I'm like, whoa, cowboy. And I looked at him and I hadn't gotten the passenger manifest list yet. So I didn't have any passenger's name. And I said, perchance, are you Dandy Don? And he was sporting exactly what you have on your face right now. A short beard and a little bit of mustache, And he took his fingers and he rubbed his beard a little bit. And he said, would Dandy Don have one of these? And now the little backstory to this is at that point in time, he's doing Monday Night Football with Howard Cosell, putting it on the map. Everybody knew who those two were. But he also started doing some Lipton iced tea commercials. So he's rubbing his beard and he said, would Dandy Don have one of these? And I said, well, I have no idea if Dandy Don would. But I said, Dandy Don would certainly be drinking iced tea. And I stretched it out and he looks at me and he kind of nudges me in the shin with his cowboy boot and he starts laughing. I said, yeah, I thought you were Dandy Don. And I said to him, are you married?
Okay.
He looks at me and he starts blushing. And I was married at the time. And I said, no, not for me. And I point at my ring. And because at this point, I'm just teasing him. I thought, hey, you're on my playing field now, buddy. Okay. And so he said, he's laughing and he's red in the face. And I said, not for me. And I said, I can find you a really great girl. And at this point, one of the flight attendants from Coach comes walking through, stunning, blonde, gorgeous. And I said, now take her for instance. And I thought he was going to roll out of his seat. He was laughing so hard. And you're talking about being relaxed around people. We really got relaxed around them. And that's why they enjoyed talking to us and we enjoyed talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely get that sense from the reading through the book, some of the stories, that it's a place of comfort, a place of joking. It's a time long gone of being able to have where the flight is actually a positive experience in and of itself. Now, we're way out of time. I knew this was going to be a bonus episode. We're way out of time. So I want to ask you, let's go to today. And knowing what you know about the flight experience back then and knowing what you know about it today, what's sort of a quick tip? What might you share with passengers today for them to have a great flight experience, to get on the good side of a flight attendant? What's a quick tip for our passengers today?
Be nice. Smile.
I like that. I think we could end the episode on that.
I mean, don't cause any trouble. Don't complain. Don't fight with your fellow passengers.
And keep your pants on. That is probably something that we need to learn from the early stories. Well, Kathy, Stephanie, I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to talk with you today. The stories, listeners, this is only just scratching the surface. There's so much more, so much fun to be shared inside the stories, some heart-rending stories as well that will touch your heart as well. Where can folks get access to this book? Where is the place that you want them to look to go find and get this book so that they can enjoy these stories for themselves?
The website is www.truetales.twa.com. They can go to our website, which is fun, and it's got lots of pictures on it and everything. And they can go to that website and they can directly click onto Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and other places to order the book. And I have had good friends of mine that they've just gone into their local bookstore and ordered it through their local bookstore.
Well, I will get all of that. And I have been to that website. There's some great pictures on there, listeners. Go rummage around that website as you get to there. There's some fun pictures there and some fun tales. And you can get all of that information by scrolling down, looking in the show notes, and clicking the links there. Well, Kathy and Stephanie, I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. It's a departure for what CX Passport often does, but it's still just been so much fun to hear about what flying, the glamour era of flying was. Thank you for being with me on the show today. What a delight it was.
Oh, well, we loved it, Rick. Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX4CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX4CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.